Big Conversations, Little Bar, with your hosts Randy Florence and Patrick Evans, featuring candid conversations with the Coachella Valley's most interesting and influential people. Pull up a bar stool and enjoy Big Conversations, Little Bar.
Welcome to another episode of Big Conversations, Little Bar. I'm Patrick Evans, along with my broadcast partner, Mr. Randy Florence.
Good to be here with you.
It's great to be here at Little Bar and
the center of the universe of Coachella Valley.
Does Skip pay you to say that?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
I'll say it 3 more times.
There you go. I would like a cut myself out of that. We record this each week here at Little Bar, courtesy of Skip Page, and we have a lot of fun doing it. It's a nice location to do a podcast because when we invite people on, if they don't want to talk to us, they might at least want to have a cocktail.
There's a bar, so they're going to be here anyway.
And I believe our guest today falls into that category. Fred was very reluctant, but we're very lucky to have Fred Bell, who with the Palm Springs Air Museum.
Yeah, you told me there was alcohol. I was like, sure.
Fred, welcome.
Thank you. I was imbibing there. Having a little. I didn't expect that. It's like it is bad to give me a mic and alcohol. That is just not.
But that's the perfect combination for a podcast.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. This is it's not as stuffy as those Eye on the Desert interviews where they really frown on us drinking during those.
Patrick, is there anybody in this valley that likes to have a better time than Fred?
If there is, I haven't met them.
That talks more about fun. That talks more about laughing.
Well,
it's incredible following you on your social media.
I just, I have a good time. And your little chair, your butt chairs for that thing on Eye of the Desert.
I know.
I go in those chairs, and the chairs are like 5 sizes too small for your butt, and you sit in them, and it's like you're only supposed to be here 3.5 minutes. Get your butt out of here.
Well, and I will tell a tale out of school, but those chairs were commandeered from our snack room. There was no budget for chairs for Eye on the Desert, and so they were commandeered from the break room. Well, and so there's one less table and 4 fewer chairs.
Well,
and
I
the
get in
station
them
didn't want
I sit
anybody.
there, and it's like you're trying to look, somewhat comfortable while you're being interviewed, and I always see myself after that, and I'm not a small guy, and I essentially look like a beached whale.
Well,
it's just like, hello, how you doing?
My favorite appearance of yours on Eye on the Desert when you came in full Stormtrooper regalia.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the normal white Stormtrooper armor. It was the special Darth Vader attachment.
Really?
Black
Stormtrooper regalia. It was fantastic.
You guys didn't get into some sort of a battle on set, did you?
No, but on the way out, his engineers had the lightsabers and are going nuts in the control room, and they're like, "Oh, that is so cool!"
I want to put that to rest. By the way, there is no argument between Star Wars and Star Trek. I like both. Fred's a Star Wars guy more, and I'm a Star Trek guy more. But remember, Star Wars was set in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago, and Star Trek is a documentary of the future. So they're very different things.
You seem to defend this at virtually every show.
I love Star Trek. I actually do.
I do too.
I
like Spaceballs too.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love Spaceballs. Merchandising.
That's going to leave a mark. So, when we started this podcast, and it originated at a couple of bar stools over there, Randy and I were talking about this idea, and it was really kind of music focused, and it's kind of changed a bit, and it's really more personality and interview focused. But when we were talking about guests who might fit into both of those categories, you immediately came to mind because you come from an incredibly musical family, and you have some really funny stories about growing up in this family. Your parents were Las Vegas headliners for many years, and your dad, Freddie Bell and the Bell Boys, and your mom, Roberta Lynn, who is still performing.
Mm-hmm.
And
who you will carry her. It's the amazing thing. She's 94 years old, and she's like dragging along, and you get her up on the stage, and it's like, wah! And put the mic in her hand, and away she goes. And then
Charo's going to be here in about 2 weeks, and I imagine it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah,
Charo,
Coochie Coo.
Coochie Coo.
She gets a bad rap. She's actually an extremely talented guitarist, Spanish guitar.
I've seen her play guitar. Yeah, my background is a little bit different in that both my parents were in the industry, and so, and they're talking about these enabled kids. Have you seen that latest thing on, about enabled kids?
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis was.
Oh, the Nepo.
Yeah.
The
Nepos.
Yes. Yeah.
Both my parents were moderately successful, but able to earn a living in show business basically their entire lives, which is unusual.
Were working performers.
Yeah.
And we talk about working actors. They're people maybe not, screen stars.
Right.
But they're in a lot of stuff. They work constantly. They make a good living. And your parents took that route in entertainment, particularly in Vegas.
Well, they were exposed to, if you look at those old, those kinescopes with my dad, with Dean Martin, and I was at our gala, Dina Martin was sitting across from me, and I didn't say it because Joe Mantegna was there and a bunch of stuff, but I said, I just saw the video with your dad, and my dad, I didn't say it, but those people kind of all knew each other at that point. It was a fairly small cadre of people. They mostly were vaudeville. They came out of performing live early.
Right.
So they were.
And was
vaudeville.
that your dad's background?
My dad was a street, singer. And then the Bellboys got together in Philly. Mm-hmm. And he did. What's interesting about my father is I knew my mom's career really well. My parents got divorced when I was 9.
Right, you were very young.
Story.
And if I can, you didn't have a great relationship with your dad for a long time.
No, I basically didn't have a relationship with my father. My dad was a lot of work. It's just a lot of work. And my mom, my parents did reasonably well. Then they had a restaurant in Newport Beach called the In Place. And Count Basie used to perform there, and all these guys. And I remember John Wayne was down there because he had the boat.
Yeah, he lived right there. He lived on
and
Balboa.
I remember that and all that kind of stuff. And then that's kind of when it blew up. And the difference was I was old enough to really comprehend what the blow up was. My sister, who's 4 years younger, had a relationship, much stronger relationship with my father than I did because she didn't have a ringside seat to all that. So it was a real challenge. And so I knew my mom's career. I didn't really know the extent of my father's career until you started to be able to pick up a lot of this stuff that you see. You can go out and you type in Freddie Bell and the Bellboys, and he's on Spotify. You can, he has stuff there.
Yeah, the stuff was preserved and now is out commercially available, and you can find it, which is pretty remarkable.
It is totally bizarre.
And your mom, of course, was Lawrence Welk's very first Champagne Girl.
She was, and she was a vaudeville, and then she was in films as a kid, and then the Welk thing was just kind of an accident. She was the last audition at the Aragon Ballroom, the last person to come in, and I don't remember the song. If you ask her, she will tell you the
she
story.
knows it.
She'll do it.
Repeatedly. She'll tell you the story 38 times.
We definitely need to have Roberta on as a guest on the podcast.
And give yourself 3 or 4 days and changes of clothes, because once you ask her, you will be here for days. So, and then she got the gig, and then pretty much the front performers for somebody like Welk, they owned them.
Right.
It's not
contract.
like you own today, you own your content. There was no ASCAP. There was no nothing, right? The Welk owned you. You got so much a week. You did
it was
the
like when
performances.
Sinatra was performing with Tommy Dorsey. Tommy Dorsey owned Sinatra. He was Dorsey's boy singer.
Right.
And that's the way it was.
That's pretty much all of those front singers at that time that fronted a band or a big band. And then she went off on her own. She did Cafe Continental, which was on KTLA in Los Angeles, which was the only TV station at pretty much that time in Los Angeles. And then she won an Emmy for that, which is a whole other conversation. And then, she kind of went on, and then she married my dad. And they were they were big in Vegas in the 60s. And so the whole Rat Pack thing and all that, she had a front row seat for that. So she's very, very good for history. If you want to understand, there really were the mobsters. There really were this. There really were. And if you want an oral history of that, she can kind of tell you all that. All those guys are dead now, but that was very real.
Which is why she can tell us about it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we get too far down this road, and of course we want to talk about what you're doing at the Air Museum.
Sure.
I want to go back to his mom.
But I want
the family. I don't mind talking about the family.
the story I want, and because it's just one of the best stories I've ever heard in my life, is the penguin story.
Where he bit me?
Yes.
Oh. Damn penguin.
It sounds like you brought up a painful memory here.
Oh, yeah. No, it was pretty damn painful.
It bit him in a sensitive area.
Yeah.
So.
Right in the penguin.
Yeah. Well, I was working for SeaWorld in park operations, and they used to do these like Andy Williams show.
Yeah, it was a holiday.
Right. It was a holiday special, and he's out there by the pond or whatever, and they had him like on a stage, a raised stage with a scrim in the background, and you know how it was, he would have like Miss USA 1975 or whatever, and she would be horribly trying to get through White Christmas or something with him, and he's warbling, and it's all a track. They're working a track. And so I had been assigned that day to kind of work that crew from a crowd control type thing, and Boy Friday, whatever they needed, whatever. I was very young, and they had these two emperor penguins on the back side of the stage,
And they're kind of big. They're sizable.
about 3 feet tall, and
Just the right height.
yeah,
Dangerous height.
a dangerous height. Imagine a Cuisinart that's 3 feet tall. So that's what a penguin is. So the damn thing. So
Our first episode, we sold Sub-Zeros. Now it's Cuisinarts.
There you go. So the birds are doing their thing, and there was what we call aviculture was there. They were supposed to be there.
Monitoring the birds.
Monitoring the birds. And I thought I saw somebody behind the corner of the stage. Like somebody had gotten through our barrier and around back. And obviously there's a lot of high power cords back there and stuff.
Not a good place for a stranger.
So I go trotting back there to look around, and I get back to the corner of this stage where this thing was, and the penguins and birds are very I'm not a bird person, but flashes of light or shiny
right.
things. So I think my name tag, maybe when I turned, spooked the bird. But the next thing I know, this bird is like, "Brah!" and jumps right on top of me from this pedestal. And I got it by the flippers, and the top of the damn bird, the bird's got a beak, and it's trying to bite me. Right? And it wouldn't be the only animal that we used to have an Indian goose there that we called Beef Bird. And you could yell at him from anywhere where you were at. You go, "Beef Bird," and he'd come over and try to attack you, beef. But this bird, so I got this penguin, I got my leg around him, and I got it, and I'm like,
And on the other side, there's a show going on.
Oh, yeah, they're singing away.
Andy Williams is out there.
Andy Williams is up there singing White Christmas, and I'm dealing
And there's
with,
a battle
with
going
a
on
murder
behind.
penguin, and this thing is trying to bite me. So I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement with SeaWorld. I'm sure it's expired at this point. The statute's run out.
That's right.
But the penguins have really powerful feet because they use their feet to launch themselves on the ice, and they have a big claw foot, right? So I got my leg on this thing, and this is all very short period of time. I mean, to me, it was a long period of time. It was very short, and I'm like, where the hell is the aviculture person to pull this murder bird off of me.
They're watching Andy.
Yeah, and well, the thing's going on and the music's going on, and they just didn't see the bird assault me. So the bird gets its footing, and when it gets its footing, it pushes like this. It pushes up like a lever, and it flips. And so the bite part is in my crotch, and the ass end of this bird is right in my face. And penguins, they crap a lot. I can't put it anywhere. So the bird is shitting all over me. Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay, the bird is shit all over me. I am covered in penguin crap, and the bird is now beak is in my crotch, and he's trying to bite me in the meat and two veg, and I'm trying to keep his head pinned so that he doesn't get a hold of me. And at one point, he got me in the inner part of my thigh, and the beaks on him, they'll cleave a frozen mackerel in half. He just opened me up. So I felt him bite me. I mean, I actually felt it, and I was like, okay, screw this. I'm done being nice to this bird. I just started beating the shit out of it. And at that point, finally, they pulled him off me, and the bird's like, let me at him. I want some more. And I am covered, and I got a compression bandage on my leg. I'm covered in, we used to have these blue uniforms with a blue shirt and a white arrow shirt and a arrow tie. I am covered head to toe in penguin shit. And I remember,
meanwhile, Andy's out there singing "It's the most wonderful time in the world."
Well, they never stopped.
never missed a beat.
They're going, and this bird has basically assaulted me. And so finally, they get the bird. They haul him off. He's gone completely berserk.
He's in cuffs.
Yes, he's in little flipper cuffs, and he's doing 5 to 10, and the penguin encounter now. But so they get me to that. We used to have a full, registered RNs and a trauma center. This was SeaWorld San Diego.
Right.
So they take me over there to dress my penguin wounds, and he got me on the inner part of my thigh. So that was fortunate. I didn't go through a forced
could have been
second
femoral artery wound.
A vasectomy.
If he got in hold of me really deep on the inner part of my thigh, but he got me where he got me pretty good. He opened me up. It was probably 30 stitches.
Wow.
They had to stitch me up. But holding this compression bandage, trying not to bleed all over the place, and the nurse is like, you're not bringing him in here until you hose him off. So I had to stand out in front of the thing.
Yeah,
and
you still had a job to do, Fred.
And they're hosing me off, all the penguin crap off of me before I could go in to get the... But it was, anyways, I have a pathological, penguins are good eating. I say kill as many of them as possible and serve them
I
up.
also imagine just hearing Andy Williams sing.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to trigger some things.
Wonderful time.
Oh, that could have been what set the bird off. You never know.
Probably
It was
is.
White Christmas, and the bird went...
That is fantastic.
But
I think our podcast has reached the zenith right here.
we have.
This is
our last
we
episode.
can just wrap it up. That is the best story.
Oh, that
That is
damn
the
thing.
best story.
You've set the bar really, really
Well,
high.
when you work there, you have the animals. You have to be careful because they will get out. And I had a walrus get out one time. I was working in water quality, and and you would do different jobs. This was at school, and you'd do whatever they were going to pay you to do, right? And this was an overnight shift, and this walrus had slipped it. They figure out how to open the peg
latch,
on their
yeah.
latch, right? So you have about a 4,000 pound, I don't even know what you want to call it, ball of love moving around back there, who all he wants to do is make love to you, right? He's out, he's like, hey, baby, come on over here. And if he had gotten a hold of you, so they would
Barry
chase-
White of walruses.
Yeah. And, you hear the dun-dun-dun-dun, and the damn, I got out one time, there's a damn walrus chasing me around in there. I had an otter get out one time, and, but you had to actually really pay attention, because if they got out, some of them they could hurt you.
Well, sure.
As
the penguin story demonstrates, my God.
Yeah, and there were other people that got banged up by animals. Blackfish, I don't agree with that, if you know what I mean. The SeaWorld, in my view, got kind of a bad rap on that, but the zoos and aquariums, they have a purpose, and you can either like it or not. And I'm not here to pass judgment on whether I didn't think SeaWorld. I watched it, and I didn't think they got. But that's my opinion, and maybe people won't agree with me. But they do serve a purpose.
Absolutely.
Well, whatever they said in that show, I'm sure they didn't talk about getting attacked by a penguin.
No,
behind the stage.
No, we used to. I'm not going to say who. This was the director of aviculture, and he would actually go on expeditions to Antarctica, right?
To get the
penguins. To find the meanest, nastiest penguins. They would look for the penguins that made a beeline to your crotch. All right, there's a keeper. That's right there. Get him. He's the guy we want. But that's
a SeaWorld penguin.
That's a SeaWorld penguin. And then they would, let me take you in for your review. And you're in a bunch of crotch-biting penguins. But I asked him one time, I said, why are there no documented attacks of killer whales on humans? And he looked at me. We were actually standing on a stage, and I asked him that, and he whispered in my ear, he goes, because when something that has a bite radius of a garage door decides it's going to eat you, there's nothing left. And I went, whoa.
Nobody's telling the story.
Yeah, and I went, well, it's kind of pretty logical.
Raise a good point.
Great white shark, the same kind of thing. But yeah, anyways, that's the penguin story.
I love that penguin story.
Let me get you back to you're a kid at home.
Yeah.
So what did this all mean to you as a child? You've got this entertainer mother. What was it like growing up in those circumstances?
The memories that I have now are really cool memories. Like I saw the Sashmo. I saw Louis Armstrong. I stayed at Al Hurt's house in Fountain. I was around some of the greats. But, it's pretty hectic when you're a kid, and it's actually, I can understand, you look at some of the reactions with people on social media, and you're trying to eat your dinner, and, you do this, you're eating your dinner, and somebody comes over and goes, oh my God, it's Patrick Evans, I love you so much, will you take your picture with me? And you're trying to eat your dinner, right? Or you're out on a date night with your wife or whatever. It's no different than when you're a kid, and they're just coming after your parents, and you're going, I just want to go to the ball crawl, why am I? So it was interesting. The other side of it is you have to grow up pretty quick. You don't really have the benefit of a traditional childhood.
Well, your parents are performing every night.
They're working, and
they're not getting up early in the morning.
No.
It's a different lifestyle for the parent. And didn't your mom kind of encourage you to maybe follow showbiz, or at least give you the option?
We had the conversation, and I did more than a conversation. When I was very young, again, kind of right out of high school, she kind of did open some doors for me, and I worked on a movie called The Idolmaker with Peter Gallagher. I was an extra, and I worked as an assistant location manager, and I did a couple of those commercials. Northwestern Bank has student loans too. Those kind of things.
And a toaster.
Yeah. And what kind of did it for me is I'd always been interested in aviation, and I wanted to go down to San Diego State and really go on into kind of something with aviation. And I was on the set of The Idolmaker, and there was this young lady that was really, really attractive. And
a shocker in movies.
Yeah. And one how or another, I wrangled a date out of her, and she lived in the Hollywood Hills, and she turned out to be just the biggest coke queen on the planet.
Wow.
And my mother at this point, because my dad was out propagating the species somewhere else. And But my parents were pretty strict about, no drugs. My mom didn't do drugs. There was no pot in the house. You didn't do any of that. And so I was kind of angling towards military, so I was kind of trying to stay away from that. And I just went back to my mom and I said, everybody on this set, there is so much drugs on this set.
And this was circa what year?
Yeah, 1980.
Yeah, okay.
And so Coke
it was required.
Yeah.
Prolific.
But, like Maureen McCormick, with that whole thing about, I had drugs. I was on the set when she was in that film. She could barely get out of the trailer. And, there were other things. And, it's like, oh, no shit. You had a substance problem. Now a lot of that stuff comes to light. But back then, with some of those people, I had brief interaction. They weren't friends or any of that. But, you're around and you kind of pick up, okay, you know who's using and you know who isn't.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my mom and I just said, I don't feel comfortable.
It's not for me.
And the thing was, I would have to live in that lifestyle in order to be successful. It was pretty apparent. And it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Well, and everybody who was successful was sort of roped into it one way or the other. The producers and the movers and shakers were.
Oh, yeah.
So,
the amount of, like I said, just the tertiary amount that I was involved. And I want to say tertiary. It was quite apparent if I mind-altering substances.
So, but you've had a love of aviation all your life. So
pretty much
the Air Museum
baby.
is a perfect place for you. How did you actually get involved?
How did I do that? I was on the board of the Association of Naval Aviation, the ANA, and not on the. I was on the. I think I was a member. It's a while back, and Captain John Duncan, who was involved in that, who was an A4 pilot, said, "Hey, this museum, I let me go be involved," and so he managed to get me on the board, and I was on the board for some time, and then. Bob, passed away, and then things just kind of progressed as I got more and more involved. And then, when Bob passed, we had to kind of take out a clean sheet of paper and really think about what we were going to do. And that's kind of how that happened. I have a useless knowledge of aviation.
It was not your profession.
No,
you ended up working in the building industry. Correct?
I was I worked for SeaWorld, and then I worked for IMAX, and then
once I recovered,
and then after my transfusion and numerous tetanus shots, and then the
counseling.
Yes, counseling and. I had
you can't wear a tuxedo anymore.
I had to get used to being around stuffed penguins. There were years where I would just run screaming.
I couldn't watch Tennessee Tuxedo anymore.
Yeah, no. But I would just, scream whenever I saw them on the TV. But I've always been interested in it since I was very young, but I had kind of worked on the entertainment side, on the business side. And then we were going to have Zachary. We got pregnant. Lisa got pregnant with Zachary. And a guy by the name of Ed Kibbe called me. And I had done a lot of stuff here in the social circles. And I knew a lot of the government people. And Ed called me and said, hey, I know you're commuting into Los Angeles, which I was still doing at that time. And he said... I have a governmental affairs job open. You're going to take a little bit of a haircut on the pay, but you aren't going to be driving, 4 or 5, 6 hours a day, which is what I was doing, total drive time into Los Angeles. And so I took that job, and what I didn't realize is that he hired me to replace him. So about 6 months in, I come in. I thought he was pissed off at me about something. And he goes, I'm done. I'm retiring. You're it. And that was the end of it. It's like, okay.
What an interview.
Yeah. But he had really hired me he didn't tell me at the time, but it was basically, we'll see if you work out. And then really what he'd hired me is to replace him. He was going to retire.
And when was that, Fred?
Early 2000s.
And that was more of kind of a government relations lobby kind of position.
We were basically the voice of the industry, and housing was on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And we were doing about 8,000 permits a year. Like now we're doing 1,500. And so I went along with that for quite a period of time, and then the market fell apart. And I went through Bush 1, Bush 2, and Obama 1 stimulus, and really got disillusioned in the whole process because the money, all that money really went to other government agencies. It was like, oh, we're going to do a stimulus, and it's going to be if you were a home builder, you didn't get any of that money, because we used to joke it came with an FBI agent. and that's true, because if there was any dispute, the agency that investigated the dispute was the FBI. So why in the world are you going to get into a grant where the FBI is a dispute resolution entity? But the government guys with shovel-ready projects went in and scooped up all that money for infrastructure. And so by the time Obama 1 came along, I had enough, but I had done a lot of the renewable energy work because it was in its infancy at that time. And so I understood it, and I went, well, there's a business here. And that's how Nobel happened, which is I still own a quarter of that. And there's a CEO that runs it now, but I'm still a partner. But at that time, and then they called me, and there had been a dust up. I had been trying to keep the executive officer that was there in, because I didn't want to do it, and then that didn't work, and then they called me and basically said, we got to get you in here. And it was the early days. There were fix it or oblivion.
Really?
There were no options. I mean, it was not pretty. And so the first 3 or 4 years were really, really tough, and because nothing worked. We weren't flying anymore. None of the airplanes were working.
Was anybody visiting the museum?
We were busy, but we're nowhere near what we are now.
Oh. You had something happen during COVID, and every nonprofit, and particularly museums, took huge hits. But you became one of the go-to venues because you can be technically an outdoor venue. An awful lot of events suddenly started happening at the Air Museum, and that continues today. That's kind of an offshoot of what happened during COVID.
We had the ability to open our doors, and so one of the things was, like Riverside County, and some people came to us and they needed venues, and the Living Desert and us basically were the only two that could stay open, where you could let the kiddos run around in essentially an open air facility. It knocked the hell out of our exhibits. During the summer, a lot of our exhibits melted.
Really?
And we ended up having to replace a lot of stuff.
So it cost a lot of money.
It was kind of a means to an end, because we were able to keep operating.
It maintained the momentum.
Yeah, a lot of these organizations were at a dead stop for a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
And, trying to get that wheel spinning again is not easy. So we were really only fully shut down for about 90 days.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
But
you were one of the lucky ones.
We were very lucky. But what we also did was we knew it was coming, because I still stay involved on the government side, and everything that we were getting was they're going to shut down. And so we quietly moved food into the facility and a couple of cots and some water.
Wow.
And we're like, well, because we didn't know, are they going to go to like National Guard checkpoints and they're literally going to declare martial law, and literally you can't go down your street, or what are they going to do? So So we put food and water and cots in the facility, and fortunately we didn't go down that far a path, but we did flyovers because we had to keep doing the, exercising the aircraft. And might as well do it. Why not? And then, but we furloughed our staff early. I think the two things that, if you look back on, well, three things. Very generous benefactors, like Houston's and some of the other foundations and stuff that were extremely helpful during COVID. There were some foundations that were not. And it was like, really? You don't get that this is the strangest thing we've ever seen.
They either stood up or they didn't at that point.
Yeah, and they were, they just, it's not that they were difficult to work with on existing grants, like let's say, but there were other foundations, Burgers, Allen's, Houston's, a lot of these foundations that were extremely helpful. But there were, and we're not going to talk about who weren't, but there were others that you're just going, really? We're trying to figure this out.
Yeah, don't you see where we are?
Yeah, but we kept our operation going, and then just gradually pulled out of it. But we also, what I was getting at, and I kind of jumped over it, was we furloughed our staff very early, like the first day, and that turned out to be, and I'm a vice chairman, right? I'm head of the operation, but I still have a chairman of the board. I still have an executive committee. But we furloughed our people very early, and that really helped them because that whole benefit thing was a train wreck.
Right.
And so they all avoided that and got in the system quickly and were fine. And it also helped us with various government programs that were coming, in that we were kind of teed up that we could move on those relatively quickly, where some of the other agencies didn't move as fast, and you just have a vicious burn rate. When there's no capital coming in.
Yeah. How many employees did you have there?
Well, we have 16, and we have 16.
Okay.
So I basically deferred my salary during the entire shutdown, and
which makes that other guy the highest paid person in town. Not Fred.
There you go. And
we said we'd never discuss salaries on this podcast.
And the reason,
the retired guy is the one who brought the salaries up.
And the reason for that was to keep the people that we did have, as many as we could, at least on part-time or whatever.
Right.
And then they we made amends when everything, but I didn't want to be a burden. My concern was I have a very young staff, or I have younger staff people. They have kids. I'm not going to miss a meal, right? So I was really worried about we have a very young operations staff. I was very concerned about, and I'm not talking like 20-year-olds, but younger. And I was very concerned that they they were already freaking out.
Yeah.
The last thing they need is to be thinking, okay, I'm going to be unemployed. I got 2 kids. So I tried to take a lot of that stress off of it.
Were they looking to you for direction?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like a military or anything. If you're in battle and you go, oh, shit, everybody's just, it's over.
That's right.
As soon as you start running the other way.
Right.
And you just can't do that. So
no, you're in a position, you have to lead by example, and you did. And the Air Museum is it's one of the most respected organizations in the Valley. And you guys, and again, I think you continue now to host a lot of events, whereas before you didn't, just because suddenly people went out of necessity. We have to have an open air place to hold our event. Now they realize what a cool place it is to hold an event.
It's a fantastic area to do events. Bob, with the mountains there, and it's an unobstructed, because of the airport, you have an unobstructed view. Every once in a while you get an air show, you get things go by that nobody's going to see. So not that close. We're sold out on events. I mean, we can't do any more events. And we've been blessed. I mean, we're getting ready to do the front end expansion, deal with some of the challenges we have because of growth. But, and again, we have just generous people. Berger and Allen just stood up at the gala and helped us with a capital campaign on that. So,
in an area that is so rife with history, the Air Museum has a special part of that. It's all history inside of there. What are you most proud of that you've put together in your time there?
I think our flight program, we fly 3 days a week. It's great to go to the Smithsonian, but all those airplanes are stuffed and mounted. You go here, you can see them.
How much of your stock flies?
We have 75 aircraft, and we fly about 14. But we don't, of those 14, maybe 5 or 6 fly a lot.
Right.
And then there's other aircraft that are licensed, and we do fly them, but they do other things, like first flight program for kids or something else.
Hey, you wouldn't tell us if you took the Stealth out, would you?
No, but
then we'd never know.
The Stealth, that's
great, amazing.
That was a phone call. Do you want a Stealth? I'm like, shit,
yes,
yeah.
I do.
And it was like,
hell yes.
I'm like, we'll figure it out, because they only call you one time. And Bob
Who called you?
The Air Force.
The Air Force. Okay, so it was the military themselves. When they're ready to get rid of planes they don't want to fly anymore, they reach out to museums like yours.
Like us. We got one of the first 4. The first one went to the Reagan Library, and I think we got the second one. But you got to go through. You go to Tonopah, so you're up at Dreamland, and they, total security. You have to go through all that security crap. You're going through 3 rings of security, and you get to a hangar, and you go in a hangar, and you have minders, and you go in, and there they are, and one of them is finished. The one that we saw had the American flag on the bottom, which is that really famous picture of the Stealth peeling away in the American flag, and there's another Stealth here. And then there was another one that was torn down, and then they're like, okay, this was the one.
How do they transport it to you? Because at that point, it didn't fly, correct?
No, the Stealth is a big body and little wings. So they kind of pitch it up on its side on a truck, and then they put the wings and the tail and everything on another truck.
But you got to put it back together when you get it?
Oh, yeah. And we have to do
some assembly required.
Yeah.
That's a lot of glue.
Yeah. And
the biggest damn model I've ever made.
And the Air Force was like, oh, yeah, we're going to give you blueprints, no concern, blah, 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 right?
For a stealth
fighter. So they give us blueprint. They really did. They gave us blueprints so that we could figure out how to, because it's all sheet metal.
Right.
And we go to cut the sheet metal. Nothing matched the airplane. So we cut all this stuff, and we're going to put it on the airplane. Nothing fits. And so one of the program Stealth people, we said, they said, well, they're all one-off airplanes. They're all purpose-built airplanes. So you can't take a panel from 833 and try to put it on 834.
It's not a Southwest 737.
Fit. So those are the blueprints, but every airplane's different. So welcome to our party. And so we basically had to custom fit.
You just had to measure up everything and
everything.
Wow.
And there, the amount of rivets, and everybody's got an opinion. So you get 500 opinions of what you got to do. But the key to that whole thing is, and it's like anything, keeping the relationship up with the Air Force people. And the people that were retiring the airplane, because we would run into roadblocks, and there were museums that were not nice to them.
Well, that seems silly. Well, that's like cutting off your nose.
We were like, you want a steak dinner? Bam! You want what do you want? You want a shirt? Bam! What do you want?
Want to meet a champagne girl from Lawrence Welk?
Yeah.
Want to meet a penguin?
You want a penguin? You want Roberta Lynn to sing at your birthday party? Sure. I've got her. What are we doing? Just do it.
Just do it.
Shut up and do it. You're at the Stealth party. Sing. Okay. But but that pays off, because when we run into problems, they would say, it's hilarious. They say, well, I have this issue. Okay, we'll be down.
So you get a little help.
Well, they come down, no pictures, and you close the hangar. Truck rolls up, you close the hangar. They do whatever they're doing. drive away,
Open up the
and
hangar.
open up the hangar again.
Were you even
whatever it
allowed to
was
talk about the
fixed.
fact that it was coming in?
Not originally.
No.
And really, like I said, you have to be. I still have to be somewhat careful about what I can talk about. When I went there, I can talk about stealth, but I don't want to throw any of the program people under the bus because, like I said, we got a ton of help. So if the stealth people ever hear this from Tonopah, those people are flipping awesome.
So the fact that you've handed us the blueprints is something we shouldn't talk about.
You each have a blueprint.
Okay.
Build one. And it's one-off.
It's one off. They're all different.
They're all different.
They're all different.
But the so those people were really tremendous, and but you have to sign another agreement, which is if you see something and you can't talk about it, like it's an additional non-disclosure agreement. I mean, I signed a telephone book.
Oh, I'm
and they
sure.
run every criminal background check and everything they can on you before you go on the base. And then I get up there, and it's in the middle of nowhere. I don't know if you guys have a hard out or whether you'll edit this or whatever, but
None of the above.
okay.
This
So
is
we're
the laziest podcast in history.
All
What
right.
we've said goes out.
so we go to a block house. Like you go to Tonopah, which is an old mining town,
Yeah.
right? And then it's like go out on route whatever and go to the Rocket and make a right. It's like okay. So you drive out. I swear to God. So you're driving like 60 miles out in the middle of the Mojave
I
Desert.
know the area.
There's a big rocket sitting there. Okay, right. So we go right, and you drive down this road, and there's a blockhouse there, like with a gate and the whole 9 yards. And you get out, and I go in, and hello, my name's Fred Bell. I'm from blah blah blah. And the first thing you notice is how large the man is, and the other thing is that he's armed.
Yeah.
Which hit me immediately is that he's armed. And so he says, we have one more document for you to sign. I'm like, okay, well, what the hell? It's an additional non-disclosure agreement. So if you're moving around up there, you cannot talk about anything you see when you move from building to building or place to place.
So what were the other?
Yeah,
no,
what
I'm
were
kidding.
those
I'm
kinds of
kidding.
things that you can't talk about?
Yeah, tell me about that. So I sign it and I give it back to him, and the extremely large armed man leans over the counter and practically grabs me by my shirt and says, "Now, do you understand what you just signed?" I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. You're going to kill me if I say anything else." So
They're going to send a penguin in.
But yeah, they have a fleet. They have a fleet of angry penguins, but they devour people. But so we go up. We do the thing where we see the airplane. I've worked with the Air Force before, so I actually gave them a little bit of shit because we had rebuilt a 105, and the airplane came in. It was just a mess, and so I'm trying to figure out how big a mess the airplane's going to be. Dramatic pause while I drink, and so the guy goes, "I'm hungry," and they told us the base is deactivated. And you go by the blockhouse, and on your right, there's these like square 2-story buildings and a ball field and some other stuff, and it's all overgrown. So you figure it's deactivated. There's and you go up, and honestly, for a airplane person, it's kind of like Mount Everest, because you go, oh my God, I am standing in Tonopah, in the blacker than black areas, right? Wow. And I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm doing this. So we go in, we do the whole brief. He goes, are you hungry? And we're out in the middle of friggin' nowhere. And I go, yeah, because we left like at 6 and it's now about 12:30. Well, I could eat. And he goes, well, come on. So we go out, we get in the van, 3 rings of security again. And there's this little like hump thing. I can't talk about this. There's this little hump thing, and it has like a storefront door, the slider doors. We walk in, there's like 400 people in there with a full steam table cafeteria. I'm like, what? You know, and so the whole time, and they've all got lanyards on, right? And I'm like, I don't want to know who you are. Yeah, I don't want to even know your name. And I got my chicken and my overcooked broccoli, and I went and sat down and ate real quick. But it was a very surreal experience. I got there twice, which is a lot more than a lot of people. And the last time when we were loading the airplane, this is another great story. We're loading the airplane up, right? And I'm like, just like, soak as much of this in as you can, you know, because we're on the flight line, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Wow.
And in the back, I'm stealing everything. Oh, there's chocks. Do you need those chocks? No. Throw them on the truck. I'm stealing everything I get my hands on. Oh, what are those? Oh, those are intake covers. Do you need those? No. Throw them on the truck. You know, do you need this guy? Is he a maintenance guy? Well, take him with you. So we, you know, we get everything loaded, and in the back of the hangar, these hangars are pretty good size. Stealth is not a small airplane, right? You probably put 4 Stealths in there. He's like, tell him to shut up. And it's parked there. And I said, well, what are you going to do with this one? And he goes, oh, we're going to crush it. It was not a program bird. It was like a pre-program bird. They made like 4 test airplanes. And he's like, we're going to smash it. I'm like, oh my God, you know, and it's sitting there. And so I go, can I have the canopy? Sure. So
they gave you
they took the canopy.
Wow.
It's in the exhibit. But to tell you, to take the story full circle, so I literally get the canopy. And my guys are like, what the hell are we doing with it? I said, look, they gave it to me. I took it.
We're taking it.
I'm not, you know, you're never going to get another opportunity to do this. So we bring it back. So about 6 months later, now this is 40 years ago, about 1980, when I was telling you that I was trying to avoid the Coke Queen. This is the most top secret airplane in the inventory. There is nothing more top secret. So I call them up and I go, you know, I'd really like to take this canopy to Reno, because we fly at Reno, as a curio. Just we're getting ready to build the exhibit. I'd like to put some graphics up there and it's, you know, canopy. It's about the length of this table, right? Maybe a little bit bigger, but we had mounted it on rollers, so it was just going on a truck. Yeah. And they're like, sure. I go, do you want any paperwork? Oh, no, we trust you. Everything's cool. You know, you're never going to, I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? They're like, oh yeah, just make sure you get back with it. Don't break it. That was it. Wow. I'm like, okay, you know, but to them it was scrap.
Right.
They were going to smush it, and it just had no more value. But so it's in the museum next to the finished Stealth, so people can get an idea of what it looked like before we painted it. But I know you guys want to get done, and you wrap.
I don't want to get done. I got 1,000 more questions, but we need to get done.
Give folks the hours of the Air Museum so they can come see you.
Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, from 10 to 5, except Thanksgiving and Christmas, because we have to be a good employer and let people off.
Go see the Air Museum. It's a great treasure here in the Coachella Valley. And Fred, we've just, as per usual with our guests, we've only scratched the tip of the iceberg. I know there are lots of great stories.
I don't even know how long we went here.
2 hours.
2 hours? Oh my God!
It's actually already Friday. But yeah, the penguin story is worth every penny.
Yes.
So no, thank you so much for spending time with us, and we really appreciate what you're doing with the Air Museum. And it's great to get the behind-the-scenes stories, because it's fascinating what you guys do. And you do it well.
We love doing it, and we love talking with you guys, and we share the little curios online and the stay positive stuff.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a remote from the Air Museum at one point.
You could do that.
We're going to do it from the Stealth. Oh. You're going to be in the spare canopy. I'm going to be in it.
Yeah. You can get in the spare canopy and
don't make me bring my penguin.
Remember that you can find our podcast, Big Conversations Little Bar, on all of your favorite podcast platforms, and we appreciate it. We're churning out new episodes as fast as we can convince people to come and drink with us. So
thank you to John McMullen, our engineer and
Thank
producer.
you, John. You've been very patient.
And as always, great to spend time with my co-host, Randy Florence. I'm Patrick Evans. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Big Conversations Little Bar. Join Randy and Patrick next time as we keep the conversation going right here on Big Conversations Little Bar.